I gotta be honest, this game has been on my radar ever since it came out. This is like the third time I've been playing this time of course so I can make this video, but holy shit, I hope this is the last time I play this game as well. We Happy Few is an action-adventure survival horror game first released as an early access game in July of 2016, but was eventually fully released 2 years later in August. This game was made by Compulsion Games, a small indie company based in Montreal of around 38 developers, who's been known for working on the 2013 puzzle platformer game known as Contrast. Although that game looks outdated in some aspects like the player animation as it's almost a decade old at this point, Contrast still looks to be an eye-grabbing game with their use of platforming shadows, their noir-style color scheme, and graphics that look like if BioShock and The Wolf Among Us had a child. Compulsion shined with their ways of how a game should be presented with Contrast, so much so that when they announced an open-world game that's about taking different drugs that take you into different realities were to be released, everybody was ecstatic. If you were to go to any of Compulsion Games' trailers on their then upcoming release, you would see a plethora of fans either applauding their creepy art style of the game or being more than interested in the concept alone. On top of that, just 1 year after the game's first announcement on their YouTube channel, We Happy Few released an early access stage where the player was able to survive in a post-apocalyptic town full of downers, or people who just didn't take the joy pills, and a more run-of-the-mill colorful town belonging to those who take their joy. This early access, although being criticized by reviewers for tedious gameplay and game-breaking bugs, did wonders for We Happy Few, with many Let's Play channels taking on the early access and therefore bringing in millions of new eyes onto the title. But flash forwarding over 7 years later since the initial release of the game, you'll now see a fully created We Happy Few with 3 individual DLCs, but with it standing at a mediocre review and a player count that's barely breaking over 100 average players on PC. So what exactly happened to this game that caused it to become this forgettable? The story was mid and the gameplay sucks donkey cheeks. Thanks for watching. As reviewers once warned during this early access phase, the game works more off of looks rather than exciting gameplay. Even the reviews that discuss the full release share similar complaints to older ones, showcasing that this problem was existent from the start and was never correctly fixed upon later down the line. But now that the year is 2023 and the game will be turning 8 years old, Jesus Christ, I was 12 when this game came out. God, I feel old. I will be looking at and discussing this lost to time game. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the story first. The story is divided into 3 separate acts where you get to play as 3 separate characters whose stories intertwine with one another, that being Arthur Hastings, Sally Boyle, and Ollie Starkley. In the first act, you get to play as Arthur, but before I get into his storyline, let me add some context just so you know exactly where you're at. This is Wellington Wells, a city-state like archipelago? Hell yeah, I fucking butchered that name. Just off the coast of Britain. In this time, Wellington Wells joined the war against Germany during World War II. However, due to a lack of the United States involvement in this timeline, the British were able to fend off the Germans during 1942, but ultimately surrendered after another battle ensued a year later. A now war-torn country, Britain was forced to send off every and any child under the age of 13 to Germany, which caused a great enough depression in the country for a new drug to be rolled out to cope, that being joy. Joy is literally just Molly. It makes you really happy and joyful when taking it, making any consumer perceive the world as colorful and happy, but when off the high or overdosing, the consumer will forget what will happen and will be left in a depressive state. This drug was to be rolled out for decades after the war, with society slowly crumbling down as they hide away from the pain. Back to the storyline, you are Arthur Hastings, an average Joe Schmo who works as an editor for a newspaper company where you get to approve or censor any past news article. One day, you come across an article of you and your dimwit brother Percy, who was sent off to Germany, which causes you to remember the war and subsequently refuse to keep taking joy. Your coworkers soon notice this as they get mad when you don't eat the real rat pinata, and you get chased out of the town of Parade and into the island of Downers. Your goal throughout the game is to escape Wellington Wells before either you die a painful death or before the entire city dies a painful death. You do this by obtaining a letter of transit so you're permitted to leave, which is all the way back at the parade district in your office. With the help of other downers and with the help of the schizophrenic Ollie, you make your way back to the joy-filled civilizations by maneuvering through different bridges that connect through different islands. But before you do so, by helping Ollie, you figure out that the German tanks used to make Britain surrender and give away their children were simply decoys, made entirely out of... It's paper mache! God, I hate the British. Once getting back to civilization, you get in touch with Sally, a childhood friend turned hated person due to an event happening in Arthur's life. After blowing her off, then immediately begging for her help in her house by going to another island, this time in St. George's, she gives you a deal that if you bring her cod liver oil from the Joy Factory, she'll give you a letter of transit signed by the Wellington General. Upon going to the factory, you notice that everything is either on fire or on fire. The factory is burning down. This is because the owner, Dr. Verloc, is attempting to create a coconut-flavored joy which makes everyone happy permanently. Instead, all this is doing is making the consumer go insane and giving them the plague, which is currently infested in and around the city. Anyways, you encounter Verloc, he runs away, you get the oil, only to find out that Sally fucked Arthur's dad when they were 16. So after blowing her off again, just to feel bad right after, you make your way back into the parade district and escape through the underground tunnel by the railroad station. Oh, when you find out your dimwit older brother Percy was supposed to stay, not you, since he was above the age limit to be sent off to Germany. But being the asshat that you are, you switch places with him at the last minute and he most likely dies in Germany. Hooray! Act 2 next starts off with Sally. She's more of a fragile person who cannot take people head on, but can rather use chemistry to create different bombs, tranq darts, you name it. She runs an underground chemistry area making blue meth, making blackberry joy for the cops and junkies. One day your lab gets raided by a junkie, ruining it and destroying all the milk for your baby. Oh yeah, you have a baby by the way. Fucking run. Now that your lab is broken, your baby is hungry, and the junkies and bobbies are at your throat trying to get the blackberry joy, you have to fix the mess and get the fuck out of there. About half of this act revolves around, oh no, something bad happened at the lab which caused me to lose an item of interest. Let me go out to the garden district to solve that problem. It starts off with baby milk, then the lab equipment, and then the ingredients for the blackberry joy 4 fucking separate times. One of the ingredients you get, by the way, are from some unexplained witches with the worst animation possible, and their mission involves running to and from a chest twice that's almost 2,000 meters long each. Have fun playing this game, asswipe. The story really grinds down to a halt, with you basically retracing steps over and over again, and this makes this portion of playing very fucking boring. But after that's solved and you make the blackberry joy, the constables become happy, but the little runt gets sick, and now you have to get the letter of transit from the general to give to Arthur so you can have the cod liver oil. But oh no, once getting the transit letter, the general finds out you have a baby and it's his baby. So he tries to kidnap the little runt, but you have to stop him and take his boat and then get the fuck out of there. The end. Act 3 ends off with Ollie. It is by far the shortest act, with the other two averaging around 6 hours each, but this one took me no less than 3 hours to beat. Ollie is a special moron who can't use crafting benches and can't use joy, but can instead beat anyone to a bloody pulp. This act picks up as soon as Arthur leaves you after helping you get into the military camp, where your train station base is being raided by the Downer bandits. You and your imaginatory daughter Margaret escape and wind up back at the military base where you once served at. You try to convince General Bing to tell everyone about the fake German tanks, but once he refuses, it's up to you to get to the parade district, beat the shit out of Uncle Jack as Ollie really hates him for some reason, and tell everybody about the fake German army. Through kidnapping the head of broadcasting, you get your ticket to the now rundown, infected parade, and you're now able to broadcast that message to everyone. Right after, you find out that Margaret isn't Ollie's daughter. Instead, she's the daughter of your then neighbor Uncle Jack, and after snitching to the Germans about her whereabouts, she gets taken away and killed, and you get manipulated to believe that Uncle Jack is the traitor through the help of copious amounts of joy and booze. The end. Happy ending here. This story in this game is honestly not bad. It mainly showcases either loss or betrayal or really anything someone has done wrong in the past, and how it's better to reflect and move on rather than trying to subdue the pain and trying to forget everything that happened. The absolute coolest thing in We Happy Few though is how all the 3 characters perceive the story. Since they've all taken joy and all have bad memories, all cutscenes in different acts are completely different. different. Even the maps in each act are different, with new buildings being apparent in Act 1 and non-existent in the other acts. Or maybe some buildings showcase side quests, but later on become integral to the story, like how Arthur can rob this one house in St. George's and can encounter a dying old man who only wants to make things up with his brother before he goes. But then in Sally's act, you kill him brutally for an ingredient. However, to me, all the characters really bring down this story. For starters, two of the main characters aren't good. Arthur is a prick for absolutely no reason, has a troubled past that isn't redeemed at all throughout the gameplay, as all he just does is leave. And he acts like this moral judge, even though he's just a dickhead to everyone he talks to. Sally is by far my favorite character of this game. She's been handed pain and misery her entire life, so her motive for escaping is very reasonable. She's a nice person to mostly everybody that she's talking to, even if that's for manipulation or just being a good person, and unlike the other two, she does have something to lose, which is the little piece of shit Run. Ollie is okay, a little unfunny with the shit he says, but he's much better than Arthur at least. But all the other characters in this game are incredibly forgettable, even the antagonists. Did you guys know that Dr. Verloc is the main villain of this game? He shows up twice in the game and is only there to do nothing actually. Nothing gets accomplished when he's on screen. General Bing is a fucking bipolar weirdo for some fucking reason, and with him only showing up in the latter half of the game, he's also very forgettable. But with that story out of the way, let's discuss the gameplay. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. This game sucked so much, I would rather shove glass shards up my ass and... I don't know where I'm going with this analogy. This game is a buggy mess with combat that's the definition of one note, all while you have to run from one side of the map to the other. That's all just wrapped in a good art style. Let's just get it out of the way. The game is beautiful and still looks good to this day. Graphically speaking, Compulsion Games did an amazing job making this game not look outdated, especially when you're taking different drugs or you suffer from withdrawal or memory loss. At one moment when you're taking joy, everything looks to be colorful and warming, especially when you're on the rainbow road where everything complements one another. And if you take too much joy, everything looks scary, with everything staring at you with their beating red eyes. But that feeling of taking everything in that looks nice just goes away pretty quickly. For starters, everything in the world feels either repetitive or empty. Going through the main village of St. George and Maidenham will showcase reused buildings that stretch down to a straight road, followed by maybe a turn or an intersection that showcases the same exact thing. The entire town feels like a maze of some sorts with nothing interesting going on. And although there are set side quests in every town, there's no random events going down in the streets, making everything feel lifeless. Maybe show a fight going down with an infected, or a downer trying to escape the doctors, anything. And speaking of lifeless, every single NPC in this game are incredibly reused. It's an eyesore. It's extremely common to see the same model villagers talking to one another, with the constables acting as the main enemies only having two different outfits in the game, and doctors that are exactly the same looking even though they're supposed to be the elite enemy. It's also the same in the downers area as well. Models that will look the exact same, bandits that only differ through hair colors and glasses. At least you can find the infected attacking the downers at night, and ruins that make the world at least a little bit more interesting, but even then you'll be running through the forest area which looks the exact same over and over again. Speaking of run though, this game has an awful problem with fetch quests. I know every single reviewer has discussed how poorly done the quests are in this game, but let me describe to you all the pain that I went through. In one quest playing as Arthur, you need to meet up with a Dr. Faraday to repair the bridge to St. George so you can meet up with Sally again. To do this, you need to go out of town into the Downer Garden District, walk to Faraday's house so you can help repair her teleporter, then you have to walk 1,800 meters to get a bucket of Modeline from a house that takes a little less than a minute to obtain, then you have to walk another 1,800 meters back, just so you have to walk another 1,000 meters to and from a car to obtain mechanical bits. And we're not done here, as when you finish that quest and open up the bridge, you have to walk across two separate joy-filled towns to then meet with Sally. If you don't have the perk that lets you fuck around in joy-filled towns, and if you don't have the perk that lets you be out at night, this segment will be a major pain in the ass, with you getting constantly attacked at every waking minute for walking or running or doing anything. It's very tedious to play Running Simulator in the game, with it very obviously only only being there to pad out the game time in the most boring fashion ever. Speaking of boring, let's talk about the combat. Go fucking figure, it sucks. Throughout the game, you'll be essentially fighting two different types of enemies, that being the normal human and the infected, whose only special attribute is that they infect you. That's it. All the other models within the game, like the doctor, the constable, the bandit, even the frail twig arm woman, match one another in terms of difficulty. In combat, you can do one of 6 things. You can block, do a normal attack, push people away, throw items, and then a heavy attack and a rushing attack. But the latter two are unlocked through perks. It's no matter though, cause you can easily stun lock any and every enemy so long as you spam the normal attack. And if you are out of energy, just block once or twice, making all 4 other methods of attack utterly useless. Some enemies might have better defense, but even then it makes no difference when fighting them. And even though you play through 3 main characters who have differing stats when it comes to attack, you can kill any enemy between 2 to 6 hits depending on the weapon that you have. Oh, by the way, why the fuck did this game give a shit about lethal and non-lethal weapons when you first get taught about combat? Killing people doesn't affect the storyline. There's no morality meter or unique voice lines during any dialogue between characters. Hell, if you make somebody go unconscious through knocking them out, they won't wake up, so this was just pointless. Oh wait, fuck, that's right. So I forgot to mention, this is a little side note by the way, but I forgot that there was an entirely different type of enemy in this game, that being the robots in here. They all work for Wellington Wells' constables and consist of a blimp that can shoot you, a headmistress that does something, I swear, and a vacuum that's showcased in a boss fight but is 2-shotted. These all suck. I don't know exactly why they were used in the first place. You can probably see them a collective total about 4 times in all 3 acts, and I think they perfectly summarize the combat in the game. It's there, but it's so bland and forgettable that it will never be praised. The last thing I want to talk about in this game is something that I've been holding back on, but it's something that is the most apparent and memorable in this game, that being the bugs. I honestly think that Hello Neighbor 1 had less bugs than We Happy Few. This game has a major problem with collision, whether it's you jumping on the ground and clipping through with it, giving you an obnoxious climbing animation, or the frequent yet unnecessary invisible walls in here, or maybe it's just the really shit NPCs getting into trouble. I shit you not, I've had moments where a downer would get thrown at me, dying instantly, but can't be looted or picked up, because I don't fucking know, this game sucks. This game is incredibly unpolished. I am shocked that throughout the years that this game has been out, bugs are still this common. The AI also is just as bad as the bugs sprinkled throughout this game. Every single NPC in this game will lose track of you as soon as you turn a corner and hide in some bushes or a trash can or really anything. So long as the enemy doesn't see you enter a hiding spot, they won't detect you, even if they're staring directly at you. You can say it's because of people in Wellington Wells being this stupid who suffer from memory loss due to it being Joy's main side effect, but that's just a shit cop-out. Why not include a group of people who don't take joy and are extremely skilled fighters who cannot lose sight of you in a span of 3 seconds? We Happy Few advertises itself with stealth elements, so either make stealth segments that aren't easy as fuck, or don't include stealth in this game. All in all, this game was such a letdown. Compulsion Games created the greatest smoke and mirrors game ever, with We Happy Few looking beautiful but running horribly. How can this game become better than it is now? Get rid of the open world aspect. It's so not needed. I felt no reason to explore this boring map already, but with the padded time of running around and walking, it just brings it down so much. It could have also given developers more time to focus on the actual gameplay, because if you were to look at any of the 3 DLC within We Happy Few, they aren't open world but are 20 times better than the main game. I don't want to explore it in this video because it showcases stories with side characters that just aren't memorable enough to have a DLC for, but it's so much more beautiful with linear gameplay that feels so much better and more intriguing than the main game can ever offer. However, is We Happy Few worth the... Holy shit, it is still $60 on Steam? No, fuck that. It's not even close to being worth $40. Just wait for this game to be on sale, or better yet, just don't buy it. But what did you guys think of this game? Did you guys like it? Hate it? Leave it down in the comments below. But other than that, I'm gonna end this video here. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys liked this video, hit that like button and subscribe. And I'll see you all in a later video. Bye for now.